thank you so much for the introduction. It's been quite a long luncheon here, and those of us still awake salute you. My suit has gone in and out of fashion 3 times here during this luncheon, and I just saw somebody slipping out, and I just asked, "Where are you headed, sir?" He said, "I'm going to go get a haircut." I said, "Why didn't you get one before the luncheon?" He said, "I didn't need one then." Before I share a few brief remarks with you that I hope will really penetrate into your world, let me just say a quick word about the battle that we all face in this nation with cancer. I learned today that both the Wilkinsons have been dealing with cancer battles, and then I just learned the shocking news from Vic that the brain coach, John Knockneagle, who has impacted all of us in sports, is in a deadly battle with cancer. So, and then I was diagnosed 3 years ago with multiple myeloma, which is one of the cancers of the blood in the bone marrow. And so here's my message before we get into other things, and that is simply this: do not neglect your yearly physical. That's the best advice I can give you, because it's through the yearly physical that doctors can spot things in advance. Modern medicine is miraculous, but only if you go get that yearly physical, and they can spot things, and you want to know in advance. However, the mindset of so many men is, I don't like doctors, or I'm afraid of doctors, or I feel great, or I'll take my chances. I mean, that's the mindset of so many men. So guys, fight through that and get your yearly physicals done. And odds are you're in good shape and things are well. However, you never know. I had just finished running the Disney Marathon on just past my 70th birthday, and 5 days later, I'm informed by an oncologist that I've got cancer. And boy, that'll clear your nostrils out real quick. So that's my little message from Uncle Pat. Can I just share this with you? You are teachers, you are teaching youngsters about this whole area of tennis and sports, but I want to suggest something to add to your repertoire. What you're really doing, when you think about it, is getting young people ready for a life of leadership. That should be right up there with the mechanics of playing tennis. Because when you start looking upon these youngsters as future leaders, it's going to change the way you do everything. It's going to be change the way you coach, change the way you teach, change the way you parent. And can you believe Nick? He's got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old from Ethiopia. My goodness, that is awesome. Absolutely awesome. And this 95-year-old man is raising these children. But Nick's going to be getting them for a life of leadership. So the real question that I pose today, what does an outstanding leader look like? When it's all over, what do you want these youngsters of yours to really learn and know about leadership? What can you teach them and offer them about how to be leaders of excellence? Well, in my study of leadership, I love to dive into the lives of great leaders. It's fascinating. Plus my 51 years of leadership in professional athletics, I am absolutely convinced that there's 7 ingredients, 7 qualities that it takes to be a leader of excellence. And I would recommend that these are the 7 principles you need to be imparting to your young people so that they can have outstanding lives of leadership. If you've got a piece of paper there, if you've got the program that you work with today, if you've got a pen or a pencil, that would be valuable. Or lipstick or mascara, ladies, whatever works for you. Some of you have those little screens that you hover over and you tap on them and kind of rub them, and that somehow works for you. But I'm going to share with you 7 qualities that you can really impart to get leaders ready, young leaders ready. Here's the first ingredient. Here's the first foundational block of leadership excellence. It is called vision. Great leaders have vision. That means they see before others, and they see farther down the road than others. and they see in a wider scope than others, and they see in technicolor, while the rest of us see in grainy black and white. And that vision drives everything that they do. George Washington's vision, a country independent of Great Britain. Abraham Lincoln's vision, well, that was one nation, not two, or five, or seven smaller ones. Winston Churchill, his vision was a world without Nazi oppression. Martin Luther King's vision, a world in which everybody was equal, that had a fair shot, where they would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Oh, and Ronald Reagan, who once said to grasp and hold a vision is the very essence of successful leadership. And his vision was a world without communism. And he was once asked about it, and he said, well, I do have a strategy. We win, and they lose. And that was what drove him. So it's important, coaches, that you really start implanting in your young people a vision for their life. So you don't have the experience I did speaking at a prep school in Houston, Texas some years ago. This was the leadership group from the senior class, and I asked them where they were headed for college and where they were what they were gonna major in, and most of them were going to Ivy League schools. They were an impressive group. And then I said, what do you want to be doing with your life when you're 30 years old? And they said, oh, I want to be rich. Or I want to be married to Nick Bollettieri. Or I want to be famous. I mean, that's what they said. They didn't have an idea. So it's important with young people to get planted right in their life now, a vision of what they can become and what they can do with their life. And you need to be talking to them all the time about that. Where do you want to go to college? What do you want to major in? And when you're 25 years old, what do you want to be doing with your life? And I have learned when your greatest talent intersects with your greatest passion, you have found your sweet spot in life. When your greatest talent intersects with your greatest passion, you have found your sweet spot in life. Just like that sweet spot on the tennis racket feels so good. Same with life. So vision is the first foundational block of leadership excellence. Closely linked to it, there is a second principle here. It's called communicating your vision. Leaders, it's one thing to have a vision, but if you cannot communicate it effectively, let me tell you in advance what's going to happen to your vision. Nothing. Nada. Nicked. Not one thing's going to happen to your vision. So the obvious question is, well, how do we communicate a vision? First of all, I would suggest you've got to believe it's important. Whether it's in your business or your organization with young people, you've got to talk and be open to them and have a communicating organization. I have learned in my sports life, boy, we've got a lot of organizations where they don't talk to each other. Well, the top two honchos are shooting text messages across, but everybody else is out of the loop, and they're down at the water cooler, whispering and sharing the latest gossip and the latest rumor, which isn't good for anybody. So old Sam Walton, Mr. Sam, has some advice for us. Communicate as much as you can with your associates, he said. That's what he called his employees. He said, the more you communicate, the more they care. And the more they care, the more they're into it. And he said, once they care, there is no stopping them. And here's a second communication principle I want you to tuck away. I have learned that you've got to be able to communicate verbally to be a great leader. I mean, leadership and talking in front of other people really goes hand in hand. Just think about that. I am convinced that by and large, the people we elect for office are usually the best talkers. In front of other people, and they fought through their fear, and they've really perfected it, and they've gotten very, very good at it. That's generally who we elect to office. And that's generally who gets the CEO post or the high school principal's shot, generally. And so I encourage you to really give opportunities to your young people to learn how to communicate and talk in front of other people. And when you think about the great leaders, of this nation. Boy, we still hear their voices, don't we? Fans, for the last 2 weeks, you've been reading about the bad break that I got. Yet today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. I may have gotten a bad break, but I've got an awful lot to live for. Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans, born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. So think about it. 50 years from now, or 40 years from now, one of your proteges is standing and addressing the world from the White House, and you helped teach that young lady how to communicate verbally. Here is the third principle of leadership excellence. It's simply called people skills. Great leaders have people skills, and that simply means they care about people. They are interested in other people. They have a heart for people. They have empathy for people. I guess what I'm trying to say is they love people, and they're not afraid to show it. Dick Vermeil, the old NFL coach, one of my heroes, used to say, "I tell my assistant coaches I love them. Why should you feel something and not say it?" said Dick Vermeil. Eddie Robinson was the longtime football coach at Grambling University. He started coaching there in 1941. Coached for 51 years consecutively. Unbelievable run for Eddie Robinson at Grambling. He used to say you got to coach every player as if he was going to marry your daughter. And then he added, "I believe that you can't coach them right if you don't love them." Eddie died a few years ago. He was 88. His memorial service at Grambling was pretty amazing. They estimate about 9,500 people were there. And it's not easy to get to Grambling University in North Louisiana. You fly in either into Shreveport or Monroe, rent a car, drive out into the country, and there's Grambling. One of the eulogizers at the service was Willie Davis, who played at Grambling, the great Packer Hall of Famer. And before his prepared remarks, Willie said, "How many of Coach Eddie's former players are here today?" And they estimate about 2,400 men stood up. Many of them elderly, who at great physical cost had come, great financial cost had come, but there they were. And when I got that report, all I could think of was, you can't coach them right if you don't love them. I shared that story early this summer at a gathering in Charlotte, North Carolina. And a lady came up to me afterwards and said, I need to talk to you for a minute. She said the year was 1998. I was sitting in the waiting room at the Green Clinic in Ruston, Louisiana. And I looked over, and who was there but Coach Eddie Robinson? And the lady said, I went over to him and said, "Coach, what would you tell somebody like me?" In other words, looking for a life lesson. And Eddie Robinson, in that wonderful, wonderful dialect, said, "Love everybody and do it out loud." And the lady went back to her seat, and she said to me in closing, she said, "I am not a tattoo gal." She said, "But I've got one on me." And she pulled up the sleeve on her right arm, and on the inside part of her wrist, there was a tiny little tattoo. And I had to reach into my pocket and get my reading glasses to see it. It was a little heart that she had tattooed there. And I said, "Tell me what that means to you." She said, "Oh, it's just a reminder of that day in the waiting room when Eddie Robinson said, 'Love everybody and do it out loud.'" And she said, "I've been trying to do that ever since." Vision, communicating your vision, people skills. Here is the fourth component that needs to be passed along to our young people to help them get ready for a life of leadership. Character counts in leadership. In fact, character still counts in leadership. Or does it? You know, we have been in a great debate in this country for quite a while about this whole issue of character and leadership. One argument says if the polls are good, if the economy is good, the character stuff is not all that important. The other argument says you can't lead without character. So what's the deal? A pretty fair country leader by the name of Schwarzkopf once said, leadership consists of two vital components, he said, strategy and character. And he said, if you have to do without one, he said, do without the strategy. Character does count in leadership. And here is what I have observed through the world of sports that I am in. The old-fashioned character values that we all got taught at home, just growing up, a lot of that is missing today. And every time you pick up the newspaper today, there's another breakdown in character among young athletes. I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, they've beaten up a girlfriend, or they've robbed something, or they've gotten into a fight, or they've been in a bar, or they've been in a strip club. I mean, it never ends, every single day. And college coaches keep telling me, listen, we're teaching character issues a lot more than X's and O's. And the stuff that these kids from another generation grew up with, that's not happening today. So we've got a big job of teaching character to our young people. Old-fashioned stuff, honesty, telling the truth in every situation, integrity, which means there's a consistency to your life, walk and talk really do match. Ken Whitten, Tony Dungy's pastor in Tampa for many years, once said to me, here's the deal with Tony Dungy. The tongue in his mouth is always pointing in the same direction as the tongue in his shoes. And then there's the issue of responsibility. We're living in an age of deflective responsibility. Leaders make decisions, you'll notice. If they work out, can't wait to tell us. If they don't work out, well, a case of instant amnesia sets in. And then we go hire a spin doctor to get us out of the mess that we don't want to be in because it didn't work, and whew, we just got to avoid the whole thing. But the mindset of great, responsible leaders is simply, this was done well and I did it. This was done poorly and I did it, but I am responsible. And then the final thing I want to share with you about character issues is simply called humility, a humble spirit. It's a sweet characteristic. I'll tell you, when I run into a leader, a great note, and I'm able to spend a few minutes with that man or woman, having admired them from afar, and then find out that they are possessors of this wonderful, wonderful, humble spirit that's totally genuine. Man, I am so excited. I am turned on for life, and those people become instant heroes to me. And so, humility in leadership. Let me share with you the fifth foundational block of excellence in leadership that needs to be passed on to our young people. It's called competence. Competence. And that simply means that leaders, young and old, are good at what they do. And that begs the question, how do they get good? Born or made? Chicken and egg argument, right? People ask me all the time, are leaders born or are they made? And I say both. I mean, they're born, and then they're all developed. And so leadership skills can be enhanced, they can be improved, they can be taken to a much higher level every day. So I want to just share with you one competency here for you all to think about. You are lifelong teachers, more than coaches. Vince Lombardi said they call it coaching, but it's really teaching. And so you're lifelong teachers, yes, of tennis skills, but of life skills, and now we're adding leadership development to your game plan. Lifelong teachers. And you can't be a great lifelong teacher until you are committed to being a lifelong learner. John F. Kennedy said, learning and leadership are indispensable to each other. So how do we become lifelong learners? Number one, continue your formal education. Go get your master's degree. Go get your PhD. You don't have to go sit on the campus for 3 years. You can do it. And then secondly, hang out with really smart people who are a rung or two above you on the ladder of life. Hang with them and pull from them and take everything you can from them. Third, become a lifelong reader. Now you're into my wheelhouse. And so I'm going to challenge everybody in this room, starting tomorrow, which is what, the 28th? Is tomorrow the 28th of November, of September? Yes, check your little gizmos. Yeah, tomorrow, September 28th, 2013, big day in your life, mark it down. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to ask you and challenge you to read 1 hour every day, the rest of your life, from a book. Not the same book, but from books. The good news is you pick the books, and never pick up a book you are not interested in. They're not assigned. If you read an hour a day, at the end of 1 week, you'll have read a book. In 1 year, that's 52 books. In 10 years, 520 books. The average man, upon finishing high school, won't read another book the rest of his life. So this puts you in a very, very exclusive club. And the best thing is your brain, and Vic challenged us about the brain. You know the best way to exercise that little 2.5 pounder? That's what it weighs. About the size of a cantaloupe. The best way to stimulate it and work it out, because Nautilus and Hammer Strength have not yet come up with the equipment to attach here. But the best thing that fits there is called a book. And I'm not anti-Kindle and all this other stuff, but boy, a book in your hands, a real book with covers and ink on white paper, ooh, wonderful. And so I've made it so easy for you today. I have brought out here, probably the 10 most recent books I've written, including my newest called The Difference You Make, Changing Your World Through the Impact of Your Influence, and the other one called Leadership Excellence, which I'm doing today in about 20 minutes, which normally is about 2 hours, but that book is in the back, and I'm going to go sign the books, and you're going to have to go to Barnes & Noble or the library in your town, or you're going to have to do any of that for a couple of months. So that's my little plug. We have now arrived at the 6th component of leadership excellence that I want you to pass on to your young people. It is called boldness. Boldness. Not baldness, boldness. Which means great leaders do not sit and wait for things to happen. By and large, they are initiators. They see a situation and they're on it. They don't wait for a tap on the shoulder, or some committee to appoint them, or the heavens to open up and they hear a voice saying, step up and lead. No, they get it done. Remember MAD, Mothers of Drunk Drivers? Boy, that lady lost her son and whew, she was on it and set up this organization. One of my heroes is Kathy Giusti of the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation. She ended up with multiple myeloma years ago and started this foundation, which has raised billions of dollars. Billions. And I'm a beneficiary because I'm on all of these different forms of chemo that she has helped get funded by the researchers, and it's now coming out, and there are at least 3 more coming in the next 3 years. So there's enormous hope for us, Mrs. Wilkinson, and this is great news. I mean, she didn't wait for somebody to appoint her to do this, just stepped up and did it. Boldness in leadership. And so I tell young leaders, whenever I meet them, many in our organizations, here's what I say to them. When they get to head up a department now and they've stepped up and they're getting bigger opportunities, I simply say to them, be the boss. I don't say be bossy or be a boss, but I just say be the boss. Because I have learned generally you get one crack at leadership. One opportunity to be the high school principal, generally. One shot at being the senior pastor or the governor of the state, generally, one crack. And the worst feeling in the world is to look back years later, deep into your dotage, and you're thinking, oh boy, I had that crack, that shot back then, but I was always tiptoeing around the edges, and I was always skating on thin ice, and I wanted everybody to like me, and I didn't want to offend anybody. And there you are by the crackling fireplace up in the mountains of North Carolina, and you're just running your days out. That's a horrible feeling. So boldness in leadership, it counts. And the final piece I want to put in place here, this 7th quality that really forms a foundation, and I really urge all of you to get this across to your young students, your young tennis stars. And here it is. It's simply called a serving heart. We hear a lot about a servant heart, but I like the verb form better because it denotes action. A serving-hearted leader. Here's their mindset. It's not about me. It's always about you. It's not about building my resume, but it's building yours. It's not about advancing my career, but advancing yours. So a serving-hearted leader is not interested in browbeating people and intimidating them and maneuvering them and manipulating them. They are not interested in that at all. Their only interest is, what can I do to serve you, to enhance what you're trying to accomplish in your life so you can live for your full potential, and how can I serve and bring that about for you? And when a leader adopts that mindset, boy, families change, I'll tell you that. Companies change, nations change. And as I think about all these issues in some of these countries, can you imagine if a serving-hearted leader landed in Iran or North Korea or Syria, where their main concern was serving other people? Wow, boy, that would really be awesome, wouldn't it? So when you join the Serving-Hearted Leaders Club, you're in a pretty interesting group of people. Jesus obviously is going to be there. And so is Wilberforce, who single-handedly broke the slave trade in Great Britain. David Livingstone, Albert Schweitzer, who in 1952 was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And he said to the presenters, now I've got to go out and do something to earn this. Gandhi will be there, and so will Mandela, and Mother Teresa, and Abraham Lincoln. I know he's there. And Coach Wooden, John Wooden's going to be there. And Jimmy Carter, post-presidency with his Habitat for Humanity work, I think he really got it. Dr. King. Chuck Colson, Prison Fellowship, who passed away recently. I know he's going to be there. And you know what? There are going to be thousands of others around the world, serving-hearted leaders that we haven't heard of. But one day we'll get to meet them. 7 things one must do to be a leader, right and true. Have vision that is strong and clear. Communicate so they can hear. Have people skills based in love and character that's far above. The competence to solve and teach, and boldness that has fearless reach. A serving heart that stands close by to help, assist, and edify.